Hey everybody, Benjamin here, president and founder of Life Advancement Group here in our HQ, and I wanted to welcome you to Adapt or Fail, 3 must-know marketing trends for pregnancy centers in 2025. Now, if you're running a center and you want to stay ahead, this video is for you. And here's the deal, trend number 3 is by far the most important and urgent, so you really don't want to miss this one. It could make or break your marketing efforts this year. That being said, if you're crunched for time, you could go ahead and skip to the 16-minute mark. Around there, I'm going to get to point number 3. But to get the full picture and really make these trends work for your center, I encourage you to stick around for the whole thing. And with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into it. If you're a pregnancy center who's looking to increase either your abortion-minded clients or do more with the clients who are already reaching out in terms of getting more of them to actually schedule, make appointments, and increase your life saves, then this video is going to be for you. So before we dive into that quick history lesson, I like to start this out with any presentation that I give, really to level set and know why are we talking about this in the first place? Why is it important? It's important to discuss. So history lesson on pregnancy centers. As we know, they've been around since the 60s. They came about during, what was a pretty heated time when abortion was becoming pretty popular just before the Roe v. Wade decision. And initially, they were invented to provide help for women, so that they would choose life for their child. So essentially, they started out first just as a resource center. But of course, we know today that the pregnancy help movement has grown in terms of the services they offer, from ultrasounds to STD testing, some even offering prenatal services, among other things. Yet, most importantly, at their core, the mission of pregnancy centers has always been to save lives from abortion. That's remained their central purpose. And so it follows that in order to save lives from abortion, you first have to see clients who would have otherwise gotten an abortion had it not been for your ministry. And so those are what we refer to as the abortion minded or determined clients, not the same as abortion vulnerable. And so, how do we get abortion minded and determined clients? Well, that is through very intentional and directed marketing efforts that will actually attract these women to your center and get them in. Now, quick caveat, I know there are resource centers out there that exist to not necessarily and explicitly save lives from abortion. They're there more so for being a resource, and they'll see and serve anybody. And that's great. That's fantastic. I think those are needed. We want to help everyone for sure, but this video is more directed at the centers that are their primary focus is reaching the abortion-minded woman and saving more lives. And so I just like to give that at the beginning of any video because it's important to remind ourselves that, hey, there could be a lot of mission drift or distractions or shiny objects. I'm most guilty of them for my organization too. Other things that come up that are fantastic. But it's good to not lose sight of, hey, pregnancy centers exist in the first place and were invented to save lives from abortion. In order to do that, you have to see abortion-minded clients. And in order to see abortion-minded clients, you have to be doing very targeted marketing. So that marketing is what we're talking about here in this video. So quickly about me in terms of why you should listen to me, the short answer is you don't have to. But in terms of my experience, I have been living and breathing marketing for pregnancy centers for the last 7 years. That's a quarter of my life. So since I was 21, I started the 501c3 Life Advancement Group. Since then, we've gone on to work with hundreds of pregnancy centers across the country. We spent millions of dollars on Google advertising for pregnancy centers. And my marketing course has also been taken by over 1,000 pregnancy help centers nationwide. All by God's grace, we've been able to connect going on actually about to be 100,000 women who are considering abortion with our pregnancy center partners. And so I'm really passionate about this stuff. I feel like I know a thing or two when it comes to marketing for pregnancy centers because it's all that I live and breathe. And I'm just obsessed with finding the best ways that we can help pregnancy centers, whether that's a pregnancy center that's partnered with us for us to actually help them with their marketing, or if I'm teaching like I do to hundreds, in terms of digital content or online courses or webinars. I love to do that too because I feel like I can have a bigger impact that way and help centers that I never would have otherwise been able to help. So what we're going to be going over is 3 important facts that pregnancy centers need to know, starting with number 1. Fact number 1, not all marketing is the same. Now that sounds like a really simple statement that we could all agree upon, but actually if you look at some common habits in our movement, our actions tell a different story. So for example, if I was to ask each and every one of you, I bet I get a different explanation when I ask you in terms of what you're doing for marketing. So everyone might check that box. Yes, I'm doing marketing, but it's very important that we actually understand the different types. So I'm going to talk about four primary types of marketing. Type number one being lead generation and client acquisition. Notice this is at the base of the pyramid. This is the number one most important thing your center could be doing as far as marketing. If you are doing no other marketing, you have to at least be doing this one. So start with this and then build from there. So what is lead acquisition? That's just getting clients. So without clients, first of all, what are you going to communicate to your donors that are supporting you? So before you even talk about marketing to donors, for example, you want to make sure you're getting clients. So to measure the success of your client acquisition marketing campaigns, you need to track things like cost per lead, lead quality, and lead volume. I'm going to say that again: cost per lead quality, and lead volume. Okay, another metric that it's similar, related, and also important is cost per acquisition. So you may be more familiar with cost per acquisition than you are with cost per lead. So what is a lead? A lead is a potential client of your center. She's abortion minded and she's in your service area, hence lead quality. Because you could have good cost per lead and lead volume, but if you don't have good lead quality, you might be getting a bunch of client leads from someone who's not in your service area, and that's not going to be helpful. Another example of bad quality would be if you were getting clients who were inquiring about irrelevant services that you don't provide. In terms of different types of leads, this could be a phone call, it could be a contact form on your website, it could be someone who sends a text message to you, it could be someone who engages with a chat widget on your website. So it's basically an inbound inquiry from someone who hopefully you're going to be able to convert into an actual appointment. So later on, you can look at things like schedule rate and show rate and life decision rate from those leads that you're getting. Because now that you're tracking how many leads are we getting, what's the cost, what's the quality, you can start tracking, okay, how many of those leads are actually scheduling, how many are showing, and how many are choosing life. But that's later on down the funnel. And we'll talk about strategic ways that you could do that, because that tends to be where things get a little bit muddled. But I have some ideas for you that's later on for number three. So anyway, if you don't have these metrics, you may not have an effective lead generation campaign, or you may be doing an entirely separate type of marketing that you've mixed up with client acquisition. I'm going to say that again. If you don't have these metrics like cost per lead, lead quality, lead volume, and lead quality is more of a qualitative metric. You don't like get a report that says lead quality 7. There's no number assigned to it. It's just gauging what percentage, like if you were to put it into a number, it would probably be what percentage of your overall leads are relevant, meaning on target, the right type of woman in the right service area. So anyway, if you don't have those metrics, I would highly suggest you get those, or you ask for those, or you work with an agency that will provide those for you. You also might not even be doing a type of marketing that produces those metrics, in which case you might just need to switch altogether the type of marketing that you're doing. So another type of marketing is donor marketing. So social media is great for this one, more than client acquisition, in my opinion. Client acquisition on social media can be tough. This presentation isn't focused on donor marketing, and my experience is limited there. That said, companies that do help with donor marketing, Stories Marketing does that. Keener Marketing helps with print materials. So again, like I said, not a subject matter expert, except for the experience that I have that I'll share real quick, just doing donor marketing on Life Advancer Group. In less than 2 years, Life Advancer Group, we've been able to grow. This is really an outdated screenshots. We've grown to over 60,000 followers and over $1,000 in monthly recurring donations that we're now bringing in from complete strangers that we reached online through posting content. So I could tell you that, it could be very, very good to get out there and create content and engage with your donors on social media. So type number 3 is awareness. These campaigns tend to be like radio, TV, billboards, social media, or community outreach initiatives. It's important to note that these methods of marketing typically tend to bring in the most intending to carry clients. So only once you've maxed out client acquisition methods like Google Ads or SEO, basically where your lowest cost per lead is, should you start to look at these more supplemental types of marketing, such as awareness campaigns. Because like I said, they tend to be less abortion minded, more intending to carry, and it could be a little harder to track. It's more of a scattergun approach, and the metrics, the key performance indicators that you're getting from these campaigns are more so things like views or reach or clicks, and these don't directly translate to actual appointments per se. You could have a ton of clicks, but that doesn't necessarily tell you if you got a ton of appointments. So that's where I see awareness campaigns tend to get a little bit more into the vanity metric territory and a little just not tracking as much as I'd like them to. So it's still good, but it's higher up on the pyramid, and you need to make sure you have your baseline figured out first. And then lastly, you'd have more so experimental campaigns. So maybe you want to try advertising on a new social media platform or pay for a sponsored slot on a radio show. There's an executive director that we work with in Metro Detroit that asked me to do an interview on a radio station segment promoting their ministry. I went and did that. It sounds like they got decent results from it. But we always want to be looking ahead to the new and to the now. But it's important that our bases are also covered first. So start with the stuff that we know statistically works, then go from there if there's extra budget. So I'm going to say that one more time. Start with the stuff that we know statistically works, then go from there if there's extra budget. So speaking of which, what are those types that we know work from the stats? So that's number 2. Regarding the most effective client acquisition marketing strategies, the data is crystal clear. So what do I mean by that? So we conducted less than 2 years ago the largest marketing study for pregnancy centers ever conducted. There were 6 different organizations that participated. We sent this out. We got data from hundreds of centers, and this data was reviewed by the top pro-life statistician, Dr. Michael New, who's an associate scholar at the Charlotte Lozier Institute. So this was real data. It's pretty comprehensive. And the purpose of the study was to determine what are the most effective types of marketing for pregnancy centers that are trying to get more abortion-minded clients. And so we polled centers on things like, what are all the types of marketing that you do? List those out. So they would list out all the different types. We asked them, out of those types, which ones produce the most abortion-minded clients in your mind? Just anecdotally, like based off their gut, which produced the most. But then we also asked things like, what percentage of your overall clients was abortion-minded versus intending to carry? So by tracking these things, we were able to look at the data and see centers that did these types of marketing averaged this type of abortion-minded clients compared to those that didn't. And so what we found was pretty eye-opening. So for example, overall, when we asked the centers which types of marketing they felt produced the most abortion-minded and determined clients at their center, 46.5% said Google Ads, 38% said Google SEO. So if you're not familiar with the difference, Google Ads is the paid results at the top. SEO is the more slow burn result where you show up organically on Google. So that's pretty huge. We're talking combined, the vast majority. Facebook organic posting and ads made up 5.4%, geofencing 2.4%, Google Ads 1.8%, billboards 6%. 0.6%. So you could see a pretty big difference there. Now, when we honed in that data even more, since this was on asking all the centers, even those that didn't do any advertising on Google. So if we honed it in to limit the data to, hey, you have to at least have tried Google Ads or SEO in order to be asked this question. So it would be centers who are doing Google Ads, SEO, among other things. When you hone in that data, it jumps to 96% of all the pregnancy centers who were doing at least Google Ads or SEO, among other things, said that it was their top method for getting abortion-minded and determined clients. That's pretty huge. Now, that's, again, just in their words, what they were seeing. But what happens when you actually look at the data in terms of the stats of pregnancy centers and their percentages of abortion-minded clientele? Because after all, if the name of the game is let's save as many lives as possible, and we know that in order to do that, you need to see these abortion-minded and determined clients, it would follow that you would want the percentage of your clientele that are abortion-minded or determined to be as high as possible. So let's look at the stats. The centers that were not running Google Ads averaged 8% abortion-minded and determined clients. Those that did run Google Ads and SEO averaged 30%. So let's put that in a different perspective. The centers that run Google Ads and SEO averaged 244% more abortion-minded and determined clients than those that did not. That is huge. That was the biggest determinant in terms of the percentage of clientele. So the overall average, like I said, was 30% for those that did. But we still had outliers. You could see there were a handful of centers in the 90 to 99, 80 to 90, and so on and so forth. So that right there tells us that the 80-20 in terms of marketing, if you were to do nothing else, you need to be doing Google Ads first. And then if you do the very next thing, if you're going to add anything else, add SEO. You start with where you get the most bang for your buck. There's a famous quote. It says, you've heard it said, don't put all your eggs in one basket, but I say put all your eggs in one basket and watch the basket, because he who has too many baskets has to put one on his head, and it's going to trip him up eventually. And so that was, I believe it was a Rockefeller said that like about 100 years ago. Really solid business advice, though, because I'm not saying put all your eggs in one basket, but I'm also saying don't go with the scattergun approach, the jack of all trades. If you know that if you invest these dollars here, you're going to get 100 women contacting you, and you invest the same amount here and you're going to get 10 women contacting you, it wouldn't make sense to just split your budget in half and send half your money here and half your money there. That's not being wise and a good use of your resources. So it really is about prioritizing the types of marketing that you will get the most bang for your buck from. And then, and only if you've exhausted those efforts, do you start to add these other supplemental services or supplemental types of marketing, such as, say, TikTok ads or something like that, that is not necessarily going to be as low of a cost per lead or as high quality. So, fact number 3, that's fact number 2. Fact number 3, and this is really important, is that having good marketing is only half the battle. So, in other words, you could have the best marketing in the world, but if you're missing some of these other things I'm about to talk about, you're going to be losing out on some serious potential and serious impact at your center. So, just as important as having good marketing is maintaining a high schedule and show rate. And there's a lot of factors that go into obtaining a high schedule and show rate. And I'm going to break some of those down. But first, I want to give you an example of 2 pregnancy centers and likely scenarios using average statistics to show you just how impactful having good marketing but not a good schedule and show rate can affect the bottom line numbers. Because the bottom line numbers is you're going for actual conducted appointments. So let's look at this example. So first example, we'll call them ABC Pregnancy Center. They're open from, let's say, 10 to 4, Monday through Thursday, closed Friday through Sunday, pretty average hours. They have nobody after hours handling inbound client contacts, which is unfortunate because they, like most centers, miss close to 50% of their inbound calls due to those calls coming in when they're not open. So let's be conservative, though, and say that they only miss 30%. So out of those 50 calls, only 36 of them get answered. Next, this center has staff or volunteers that haven't gone through thorough training on how to field abortion-minded calls. And from what we've observed through the years of talking to centers, if the call is truly abortion-minded or determined, most of those centers have about 5 to 10% schedule rate. Nonetheless, let's be generous and say it's 25% schedule rate. Trust me, that's generous. Therefore, out of the 36 calls, only 9 make an appointment. Next, let's imagine in this scenario that the center makes a mistake of not scheduling the woman for a same day or next day appointment. We know that scheduling these women too far out significantly decreases the show rate. Let's also assume that the center doesn't use the best practice of appointment reminders via call or text. So I know some centers that do both of those things, right? They send the reminders and they schedule pretty quickly, but they still only have about a 44% show rate for abortion-minded clients. So in this scenario, we'll just assume a 25% show rate. So then after all of that, how many leads did the center get out of those 50? Just 2 appointments. So hopefully you guys can see how when all these things are compounded together, it will cripple the efforts of a center that's wanting to save lives and completely waste their marketing dollars. So now let's consider another scenario here. This is going to be XYZ Pregnancy Center. And I'm actually going to use real schedule and show rates of a center that I work with as an example here. I won't name them though. So let's assume the center receives the same 50 calls. They utilize after hours communication technology like LifeLead. So all those 50 calls get answered or responded to immediately via text. The staff is trained on expert scripting and scheduling practices, and therefore they boast an impressive 70% schedule rate for those abortion-minded and determined calls. So therefore, 35 out of those 50 calls actually make an appointment. The center also did the right thing of scheduling the woman the very next day. So that's going to help with show rate. On top of that, they're also providing ample information ahead of the appointment to prepare the client and remind her of her appointment. So that's going to help with show rate as well. And the result of this is a 65% show rate after all these things are factored in. So guess how many appointments the center got? 23 appointments. That's 10 times, more than 10 times the appointments that the other center got from the same amount of inbound calls. So you could see in this scenario how same amount of calls, but it's all in the follow-up. So now I want to get real with you guys. So why is this important? Why is maintaining a high schedule and show rate so important? If not, if in case it's not already clear from the example I just gave. So I'll tell you a quick story from our organization. When we got started 7 years ago, our mission was rescuing lives from the destruction of abortion. Still is. So we weren't out there to just do marketing. We wanted to actually increase the life saves of the pregnancy centers we partnered with, because if we weren't, then we were wasting our time. And so basically, we got really good at marketing and generating calls for these pregnancy centers that we worked with. But we realized that a lot of the calls and leads that we were generating were not becoming appointments, and therefore no lives were getting saved with those missed. And so we added an entire component to our program. Basically started with just asking the center that we were working with at the time, who had the highest schedule and show rate, run by a woman named Erica. We asked her to train the other centers or share her scripts and best practices and follow-up templates and things like that. So she started doing that more and more. And eventually we added this entire component to our organization because we realized it was so important, and we just added it for free, like this included thing. Hey, we're going to do your marketing, but we're also going to come alongside your team and help them with this, because we want to make sure that you're actually able to convert these calls into appointments at the highest rate possible. So that was number one. But then a couple of years after doing that, and it helped a lot, we realized that centers were missing a lot of their calls due to after hours. And so that's why we launched the first of its kind in 2021, LifeLead. So LifeLead is our all-in-one communication and marketing software that helps pregnancy centers increase their schedule and show rates through a variety of different tools. But why this matters is that if you don't have these other components, and maybe it's not with us, maybe it's just finding some training or technology elsewhere. But regardless, you need to make sure that you're prioritizing this just as much as you're prioritizing marketing. Don't just prioritize marketing and then let the calls go to volunteers, or let the calls go to even well-trained staff, but staff that's got no accountability. They're not tracking their exact schedule rate or setting goals for how to get higher. And then also making sure that you're investing in the technology that's going to help manage these leads so that you're not having a lot of them fall through the cracks. So both of these other components, the training and the technology, are just as important as the marketing. And that's something that I wish more people in this space would be talking about, because everybody wants to talk about marketing, but they don't want to talk about the things that affect schedule and show rate. But as we just saw, that's the difference between 2 or 23 appointments. So as I mentioned, that's why we built LifeLead. If you want to learn more, check out lifeleadapp.org. Like I said, there are other tools out there that can also do this, but I will give you my best I'll be a biased breakdown of some of the differences you're going to run into, but these are important, like I said, to consider, because at the end of the day, most important thing is you're investing in some kind of technology, even if it's not LifeLead. That being said, we invented LifeLead primarily as a tool to help pregnancy centers increase their schedule and show rate. And so in 2021, there weren't many options available for HIPAA compliant communication with centers and their potential clients. Before that, centers might have been using something like Google Voice or CallRail. But there were problems with that. First of all, Google Voice wasn't and isn't HIPAA compliant. And the HIPAA compliant version of CallRail is actually several $100s more per month than what most centers are currently paying. If you're using CallRail, chances are you're probably on the plan that is not for health care or HIPAA. And you need to get off that, and you need to start paying for the HIPAA compliant version if you're on it. That said, it also didn't track everything that we needed it to. And my team and I also didn't take pleasure in encouraging our pregnancy center partners to spend money on a secular software like CallRail, considering that's also used by abortion clinics and donates to LGBT causes. So, we believe that pregnancy centers deserved a tool that was built by people who shared their mission and understood exactly what the needs were of their ministry. And so that's what LifeLead is. Many of you also might be using HopeSync or Infinite Worth to schedule for you. But I want you to reflect on some things. First of all, number one, cost. So cost is more than three times to get Infinite Worth and HopeSync. It's going to be over $10,000 as of right now, as of recording this video. $8,400 a year for the nurses and another 2,000 and change, I believe, for the 200 a month. So something, do the math, 2,400 for HopeSync. So over $10,000. So that's great. It's a great solution for some people, but it's three times the cost of what you're going to pay for LifeLead. And at the same time, centers who use LifeLead average 2 to 3 times a higher schedule rate than pregnancy centers who use CallRail or HelpSync to schedule their leads. And I think a big part of that is using that third party to schedule for you. It could be a great tool to lean on in particular times, but I want to address the elephant in the room. And that is that I've collaborated with hundreds of centers across the US these past 7 years. And I've noticed something that is pretty important. It's not true of all centers, but the vast majority of multi-million-dollar top performing pregnancy centers in terms of client volume, they handle their client booking in-house. So it's an elephant in the room. I know it causes anxiety for some of you guys thinking about it's just so easy to pass the buck off to an answering service or pass the buck off to a nurse chat line. But these are tools that should be at best used temporarily as a last case resort to fill in while you build your staff. But if we're looking at the top performing pregnancy centers that are handling their communication in-house, that should signal to us that we should be striving towards moving more in that direction, not less. Not how can I delegate more and more? I did after hours. Now I'm just going to delegate all 24/7 to a third party. That's going in the wrong direction, in my opinion. You want to be going more in the direction of I handle my booking now during the day, but not at night. But hey, let's see if I can stretch those hours. Get someone for an extra hour or two on my team who's going to help respond. So good news is, like I said, though, with LifeLead, whether you're responding to them yourselves after hours or just relying on the system's automations that will respond for you, pregnancy centers who use LifeLead average 2 to 3 times the schedule rate as those that utilize a third-party scheduling tool, and it's 1/3 of the cost. So shameless plug there, but I had to put that out there. It is the elephant in the room. I don't expect every center in the United States to use LifeLead. Like I said, at the end of the day, the most important thing is using something is going to be better than using nothing at all. But it's very important that if you're investing in marketing, you also invest in the technology that's going to help facilitate those leads. Last and final note on that, if you are using CallRail or HelpSync instead of LifeLead, check your schedule rate. That's all I'm going to say. Check your schedule rate. I've talked to a lot of centers in the past year that shockingly do not know the schedule rate, especially a center that is paying for anyone to schedule for them, whether that's your staff or that's a third party that you're paying to schedule for you. If you're paying them money, you should know what your schedule rate is. And if you don't know what that is, go and look, because the only way that you can assess if this is worth your investment is actually see how many people, how many potential clients did I actually send to this person who's scheduling, and how many of those actually scheduled. Next, quick note on training options. So risecourse.org, if you want to learn more about that, that is where you can learn more about Erica on our team, the Rise course that she built. Rise stands for Resources, Instruction, Support, and Education. So there's different things on there. From most famous, I would say, is the basic training on effective communication. So this is techniques both over the phone and in person, harnessing the latest modern scripting, text templates, response follow-up, protocols, different things like that that just really help drive that schedule rate forward. She's also got stuff on there like volunteer cultivation, how to get the right people in the right seats, the modern options consultation, how to make the most of every appointment from intake to exit. So a lot of different courses on there. Great thing about it is you don't have to be doing marketing with Life Advanced Group to take advantage of that. Same thing with LifeLead. We wanted to make these available to everybody. So while we take on a lot more limited people, if you're not familiar with Life Advanced Group, but we do have a marketing program where we will do the marketing for you. But it's a lot more limited. We only take on a certain amount of clients per quarter. And that's because we want to maintain the value and the integrity of the program itself and make sure that we're giving the very most possible and not stretching ourselves too thin. That said, LifeLead and Rise, the training to help you on the phone plus the technology to help facilitate those conversations are available to all centers, whether they're working with us or not. So I wanted to put that out there. In closing, I want to give you the info. If you do want to contact us, lifeadvancergroup.org, or you can shoot us an email, info@lifeadvancergroup.org. Follow us on Facebook, and most importantly, search for and join the Collective of Pregnancy Center Professionals. So that is a Facebook group I want to invite all of you to. Go ahead and search for it on Facebook. It's called the Collective of Pregnancy Center Professionals. There, you can connect with other like-minded people who are in your same space. You can ask for advice, ask for resources. We also post Tuesday tips every week. So we'll have guest writers come in from all over the industry, speak about important and relevant topics to you, the pregnancy center ministry worker. And so, I hope you guys will join. If nothing else, you get nothing else out of this, I just hope that you will get a lot out of the community that you're able to find in this group. So that's all for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I look forward to talking to you in the future. Keep up the life-saving work. You guys are the ones actually in the trenches doing the hard stuff. I'm just behind the screen. So I just thank you guys. My heart goes out to you. Keep up the good stuff. Remain strong. Keep saving lives. I'll catch you on the next one.